Joining me now is the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. Congressman, let's start there with the firings over at DNI. What do you think are the consequences for America's safety net based on what you know so far?
Yeah, look, it's an important question, and my guess is that most of your viewers hear ODNI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. They don't know what it is. So, I mean, let me make this sort of real. As we speak, there is a big operations center known as the National Counterterrorism Center, the NCTC, where all kinds of people are staring into screens, watching terrorists, watching people who are planning attacks on the homeland. I'm already hearing rumors, and I'd love to come back to the fact that as one of the key oversight people in the Congress, what I'm hearing is rumors, no communication from Bill Pulte or any of his people, that those folks are getting fired. So, I want people to sit on that for a second. The folks that are keeping us safe from terrorist attacks at a moment when there's a war on in the Middle East and lots of people who would like to do us damage, the rumors I hear is that many of them are being fired, which is unacceptable on the face of it. I have to chuckle at Tom Tillis's characterization. He knows very well that Bill Pulte didn't do the strategic work, the hard work to figure out where the fat is, to figure out where, streamlining can occur. God only knows, based on what we know about Bill Pulte, around how he's firing people. And what we are talking about here are people who are dedicated day in and day out, 24/7, to the safety and security of the American people. So the stakes really couldn't be higher.
So, there's Tom Tillis, who we just heard there, who is very sharply critical. Then you have Senator Tom Cotton, who was not thrilled about the Pulte nomination, but he did say today, when asked about the cuts, that there is some agreement between Republicans and Democrats that there's fat that needs to be cut, that the Office of the Director of National Intelligence needs to be run more efficiently. I mean, do you think that's true?
Yeah, well, it is true, but it has nothing to do with what Bill Pulte is doing right now. It's kind of like if you had appendicitis and I said, oh, well, we're going to cut off your legs. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. There are no federal agencies that probably couldn't use a pretty good hot wash, to figure out where the fat is, to figure out, how you could reform and modernize an agency. That's hard work. It really is hard work. It requires people who really know that agency. It requires people who are acting in good faith. Neither of those things describe Bill Pulte. We know Bill Pulte, right? Because we saw what he did when he was at this obscure federal agency, right? FHFA, an agency nobody had ever heard of. It's really important to housing, but it's a pretty esoteric agency. And what does Bill Pulte do? He goes after Adam Schiff, and he goes after the Attorney General of New York State, Tish James. Absolutely no jurisdiction, and he did it in illegal fashion. That was bad enough. But now we're talking about the intelligence community, right, where people work as I said before, work 24/7 to keep us safe from terrorist attacks, from cartels, from spies, you name it.
So Trump actually did nominate a permanent person to fill this role. His name is Jay Clayton. But then he pulls his confirmation or his nomination before the confirmation hearing. We're starting to hear from some on the right that Trump, even if the Senate moves to nominate a permanent head, should not even swear that person in order to keep Bill Pulte in that role longer. First of all, do you think that's a risk here? And if he were to do that, what do you think should be the response from Congress?
Look, it's a very serious risk. I've known Jay Clayton for a very long time. And, if you want to think about the range of people who could be DNI, the head of our intelligence community, Tulsi Gabbard never made me comfortable. But I knew Tulsi, and as crazy as some of the stuff that Tulsi was doing, she wasn't actually going after individual people the way Bill Pulte did in his previous job. So Tulsi made me uncomfortable. Bill Pulte is about the worst nominee you could have for this position. Jay Clayton, who I've known for decades, is actually a very solid guy. Now, he's going to be working for Donald Trump, so he's going to say a lot of things that make people uncomfortable. But in the spectrum of people that could be running this agency, Jay Clayton would give me a lot more confidence than the other ones. And by the way, if you actually got Jay Clayton done the way the president said he would, the Congress would have an opportunity to reauthorize FISA 702, which is not the subject of this interview, but suffice it to say that, because of the president's actions, our critical intelligence collection authority is now on ice. So what you see coming out of the White House right now is just straight up vandalism.
Let me play this for you. This is President Trump in the last hour talking about the state of California. He is basically saying he wants to take another look at the elections there. Listen.
Hey, did they screw the kid, Pratt? Boy, he's leading, and all of a sudden he's lost. Then it started happening with the next candidate, Steve Hilton, who's running for governor. I said, here we go again. And I called up the U.S. attorney in California. They said, we're going to have a number in the next week. Next week. I called up the very powerful, very good U.S. attorney in California, and I said, do me a favor. Take a look. They're trying to steal that election, too. I guess they called up. We want to check your votes. About an hour after the call, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hilton has won. So had I not made that call, Steve Hilton would right now be watching the election from home.
Not sure even what he's talking about, but what's your reaction to it, Congressman?
Look, this is exactly what he did after he lost the election. He said it was fraudulent. He went to U.S. attorneys. He went to court. Every single court said that is not true. It is not true. And I'm sure he's going to sick people on California, and they'll discover what they always discover, which is that the election was fair. Trump is doing this because he knows he's going to lose the House of Representatives and maybe the Senate, and he wants to reserve the right to try to compromise those elections. Make no mistake what he's doing here.
Congressman Jim Himes, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll be right back.
Thank you, Abby.